I'm Juno Carter, 15 years old, and up until 6 months ago my life was, well, pretty okay. It was just me and my dad, living in a small but cozy house in the suburbs. We had a routine. Saturday mornings meant waffles with extra syrup, and Sunday evenings were for stargazing in our backyard with the telescope Mom left me before she passed away when I was 9. That telescope was everything to me. It was like a piece of her, a way to feel close to her even after she was gone. Dad and I weren't perfect, but we were a team. At least I thought we were. Then Dad met Elise. She came into our lives like a whirlwind, all bright smiles and loud laughter, and before I knew it, they were engaged. Elise had a daughter, Sabrina, who's 17, and a son, Ethan, who's 12. I didn't mind the idea of a bigger family at first. I thought maybe it'd be nice to have siblings. But the day they moved in, everything changed. Sabrina took one look at my room with its star-patterned wallpaper and shelves of astronomy books and said, "This is mine now. You can sleep in the attic with Ethan." I laughed, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. Dad pulled me aside that evening, his voice soft but firm. "Juno, Sabrina's older and she's starting to apply for colleges. She needs her own space to focus. You and Ethan can share the attic for now. It'll be fun, like a sleepover." I stared at him, waiting for him to say he was kidding. The attic wasn't even a real room. It was a dusty, cramped space with slanted ceilings and a tiny window that barely opened. But Dad's eyes were pleading, like he needed me to say yes. So I nodded, even though my chest felt tight. That night, I carried my telescope up the creaky attic stairs, trying not to cry as Sabrina tossed her clothes onto my old bed. The attic smelled like mildew and forgotten things. Ethan, who was already bouncing on an air mattress, looked at me and grinned. "This is gonna be awesome. I've always wanted a roommate." I forced a smile, but inside I felt like I'd just lost my home. My room wasn't just a space, it was where I'd spent hours talking to Mom in my head, looking at the stars through my telescope, dreaming of becoming an astronomer someday. Now it was gone, and I was supposed to be okay with it. Over the next few days, I watched as Sabrina turned my room into hers. She tore down my wallpaper, saying it was childish, and replaced it with posters of pop stars I'd never heard of. My books got shoved into a corner, and when I tried to take them back, she snapped, "You don't need these up here. They're just collecting dust." Ethan, meanwhile, thought it was funny to use my telescope as a pirate spyglass, swinging it around until I heard a crack. The lens was chipped. I ran to Dad, holding the broken telescope, tears streaming down my face. "Ethan broke it, Dad." This was Mom's. He barely looked up from his phone. "Juno, it's just a telescope. We'll get it fixed. Don't make a big deal out of it." I stood there, stunned. That telescope wasn't just a thing, it was my last connection to Mom. And he didn't care. That was the first sign something was really wrong. But it wasn't the last. Living in the attic with Ethan was a nightmare. He was loud, messy, and had zero concept of personal space. My stuff kept disappearing. My favorite sweater ended up covered in ketchup stains, and my astronomy notebook had doodles of spaceships all over it, courtesy of Ethan. I tried to talk to him about it, but he just laughed. "Lighten up, Juno. You're so boring." I'd grit my teeth and try to ignore it, but it was hard. The attic was freezing at night, and I could hear Sabrina blasting music from my old room below, living the life I used to have. Elise didn't help. She'd walk into the attic without knocking, wrinkling her nose at the mess Ethan made, and say things like, "Juno, you really need to clean up in here. It's not fair to Ethan to live like this." I'd blink at her, confused. Ethan was the one leaving candy wrappers and dirty socks everywhere, but somehow I was the problem. When I tried to explain, she'd cut me off. "You're a big girl, Juno. Stop whining and figure it out." I'd bite my tongue and nod, but inside I was screaming. Sabrina was worse. She'd barge into the attic just to taunt me. One day, she held up a framed photo of me and Mom from our last beach trip together. "This is so ugly," she said, tossing it onto my mattress. The frame cracked and the glass shattered. I lunged to pick it up, but she stepped on the shards, grinding them into the floor. "Oops," she said with a smirk. "Guess you should have kept it somewhere safe." I wanted to scream, to shove her out of the attic, but I didn't. I just sat there, picking up the pieces of glass, my hands shaking. Dad started acting different, too. He used to be my biggest cheerleader. He'd come to every science fair, clapping the loudest when I won first place for my model of the solar system. But now he was always busy with Elise, Sabrina, and Ethan. One evening, I asked him if we could go stargazing like we used to. He looked at me, distracted, and said, "Not tonight, Juno. Sabrina needs help with her college applications." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat, but it hurt. Felt like I was losing him piece by piece. The new family rules didn't help. Sabrina got an allowance of $100 a month, $100. Then got $50 and I got $20. When I asked Dad why, he sighed. "Sabrina has expenses, Juno. She's older, she needs more. And Ethan's growing so fast. You don't really need much, do you?" I stared at him, my mouth dry. I needed new sneakers. Mine had holes in them, but I couldn't afford them with $20. Sabrina, meanwhile, was buying new clothes every week. It wasn't fair, but when I tried to say that, Dad's face hardened. "Don't be selfish, Juno. We're all adjusting here." That word, selfish, hit me like a slap. I wasn't being selfish. I just wanted to be seen. The worst part was how they treated Mom's memory. Elise started redecorating the house, taking down the little things that reminded me of Mom, like the painting she'd hung in the living room, a soft watercolor of the night sky. "It doesn't match the new vibe," Elise said, tossing it into a box. I begged her to keep it up, but she just shrugged. "This is my house now, Juno. We need to move forward." Move forward? How was I supposed to move forward when they were erasing everything that mattered to me? Things got worse when I found out about the college fund. Mom had set it up for me before she died. A savings account with $150,000 meant for my education. She'd always dreamed of me going to college, maybe even studying astronomy at a big university. Dad used to talk about it all the time, saying, "Your mom wanted you to reach for the stars, Juno. This fund will make sure you can." I'd held on to that promise like a lifeline, especially after everything started falling apart. One night, I overheard Sabrina and Dad talking in the kitchen. I was coming down to grab a glass of water, but I froze when I heard Sabrina say, "Thanks for the money, Dad." I couldn't have applied to Stanford without it. My heart stopped. Dad's voice was warm, proud. "You deserve it, Sabrina. That fund will make sure you get the best education." Fund? What fund? I stepped into the kitchen, my voice trembling. "What fund are you talking about?" They both turned, and Dad's face went pale. Sabrina just smirked, leaning back in her chair like she owned the world. "What fund?" I asked again, louder this time. Dad cleared his throat, avoiding my eyes. "Juno, it's the college fund your mom left. We decided Sabrina should use it since she's starting college next year." I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. "You gave her my fund? The one Mom left for me?" Sabrina rolled her eyes. "It's not like you're going to college anytime soon, Juno. You're 15. I need it now." I looked at Dad, waiting for him to say something, to tell her she was wrong. But he just sighed. "Juno, college is expensive. Sabrina's ready now, and we're not even sure if college is the right path for you. You've been so distracted lately." Distracted? I was distracted because I was living in an attic, because my stuff kept getting broken, because I felt like a stranger in my own home. "You don't think I'll go to college?" I whispered, my voice breaking. Dad raised his hands like he was trying to calm me down. That's not what I meant, Juno. But we had to make a choice. A choice. He'd chosen Sabrina over me, over Mom's wishes, over everything I'd been holding on to. I turned and ran back to the attic, slamming the door behind me. Ethan looked up from his comic book. "What's wrong with you?" I didn't answer. I just curled up on my mattress, clutching the broken telescope, and cried. The next day, I tried to talk to Dad again. I found him in the living room, watching TV with Elise. "Dad, can we talk about the fund?" I asked, my voice small. He didn't even look at me. "Juno, we've already discussed this. You need to stop being so selfish. Sabrina needs this more than you do right now." There it was again, selfish. The word echoed in my head, making my chest ache. I wasn't selfish. I was hurt. I was betrayed. But he couldn't see that. I went back to the attic and pulled out the little box where I kept Mom's things. The photo from the beach, a bracelet she used to wear, a letter she'd written me before she died. I opened the letter and read it again, her handwriting shaky but full of love. "Juno, my star, I know you'll do amazing things. This fund is for your dreams. Don't let anyone take that away from you." I clutched the letter to my chest, tears falling onto the paper. Mom had wanted me to have that money, and Dad had given it away like it was nothing. The next few weeks were a blur of anger and sadness. I felt like a ghost in my own house, invisible to everyone except when they needed someone to blame. Ethan kept messing with my stuff. He'd taken my bracelet, the one Mom gave me, and used it as a lasso for his action figures. When I found it, the clasp was broken and one of the charms was missing. I screamed at him, something I'd never done before. This was my Mom's. "Why can't you just leave my things alone?" He stared at me, then ran to Elise, crying. She stormed up to the attic, her face red. "Juno, you can't yell at Ethan like that. He's just a kid." I tried to explain, but she cut me off. "You're overreacting. It's just a bracelet." It wasn't just a bracelet. It was one of the last things I had from Mom, and now it was ruined. I went to Dad, hoping he'd understand, but he just sighed. "Juno, you need to stop making a fuss over little things." Ethan didn't mean it. Little things? My room, my telescope, my photo, my bracelet, my college fund, none of these were little to me. But to them, I was the problem, the one who couldn't adjust. Sabrina kept rubbing the college fund in my face. She'd come home with new things, a fancy laptop, a leather jacket, a pair of boots that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. "Thanks to your fund, I'm all set for Stanford," she'd say, smirking at me while I sat in the attic, trying to fix my broken sneakers with duct tape. I didn't respond, but every word felt like a knife. She knew what that money meant to me, and she didn't care. One night, I found Dad in his office, working late. I stood in the doorway, holding the letter Mom wrote me. "Dad, can we talk?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He looked up, annoyed. "Juno, I'm busy." "What is it now?" I held out the letter. "This is what Mom wrote me. She wanted that fund for me, for my dreams. How could you just give it away?" He didn't take the letter. He didn't even look at it. "Juno, we've been over this. You're being dramatic. Sabrina needed the money more. You'll figure something out when the time comes." Dramatic. Selfish. Those words kept coming back, each one cutting deeper than the last. I walked away, the letter crumpled in my hand. That night, I sat in the attic, staring at the cracked telescope, the broken bracelet, the torn photo. I felt like I was disappearing, piece by piece. I didn't belong here anymore. This wasn't my home, it was theirs. Sabrina's, Ethan's, Elise's. Even Dad felt like a stranger now. I pulled out my laptop, the one I'd saved up for with my measly allowance, and started typing. I wrote everything: the attic, the broken things, the college fund, the way they treated me like I didn't matter. I didn't know what I was going to do with it, but I needed to get it out. When I finished, I stared at the screen, my hands shaking. I didn't expect anyone to care about my story. But something inside me whispered, maybe someone will. I opened a browser, found a forum for family stories, and posted it. The title was simple: "My dad gave my college fund to my stepmom's daughter, then called me selfish." I hit post, closed my laptop, and went to bed, not expecting anything to come of it. I had no idea what I'd just started. I woke up the next morning to my phone buzzing like crazy. I rubbed my eyes, confused, and saw hundreds of notifications from the forum. My post had blown up overnight, thousands of likes, hundreds of comments. I scrolled through them, my heart racing. "This is awful, Juno. You don't deserve this. Your dad is the selfish one, not you. I'm so sorry about your mom's things. That's heartbreaking." People were angry for me, sad for me, rooting for me. For the first time in months, I didn't feel invisible. One comment stood out. "Hi Juno, I'm a producer for a podcast called Family Secrets. Your story really moved me. Would you be willing to share it on our show?" I stared at the message, my hands trembling. A podcast? Me talking about this to thousands of people? I didn't know if I was ready, but something inside me said, "Do it. This is your chance to be heard." I messaged the producer back, saying yes, and within a week I was on a Zoom call with her, setting up the interview. I didn't tell Dad or Elise I was doing it. I didn't want them to stop me. The day of the recording, I locked myself in the attic, put on my headphones, and waited for the call. The host, a woman named Clara, had a warm voice that made me feel safe. "Juno, tell us what happened when your dad remarried," she said. I took a deep breath and started talking. I told her about the attic, about Ethan breaking my telescope, about Sabrina taking my room and destroying my photo. I told her about the college fund, $150,000 that Mom left for me, gone, handed to Sabrina like it was nothing. I told her how Dad called me selfish, how Elise told me I was overreacting, how I felt like I didn't belong in my own home anymore. Clara listened quietly, and when I finished, she said, "Juno, what would you say to your dad if he were listening right now?" I didn't even have to think about it. I'd tell him I miss him. I miss the dad who used to stargaze with me, who used to care about my dreams. I'd tell him I lost Mom, and now I feel like I've lost him too. My voice cracked, and I heard Clara sniffle on the other end. "Thank you for sharing that, Juno," she said. "I know that wasn't easy." The episode went live 2 days later, and it spread like wildfire. People shared clips on TikTok, Instagram, everywhere. "This girl's story broke my heart," one caption read. "Her dad needs to be ashamed," said another. I watched as the comments poured in, strangers from all over the world calling me brave, telling me I wasn't alone. It felt good, but it also felt scary. I knew this wasn't going to stay online forever. Eventually, it would come back to my family. And it did. That afternoon, I came home from school and saw Elise standing in the kitchen, her phone in her hand, her face pale. She looked at me, her voice shaking. "Juno, what did you do?" I froze. "What are you talking about?" She held up her phone, showing me a clip of the podcast. "This is everywhere. People are calling us monsters." I didn't know what to say. Part of me felt guilty, but another part felt free. For the first time, someone was listening to me. And I wasn't going to let them silence me again. Podcast changed everything. School, people started whispering as I walked by. "That's the girl from Family Secrets," I heard someone say. A few kids gave me sympathetic looks, but others just stared like I was some kind of celebrity or a freak. I wasn't sure which was worse. But the real chaos started at home. Elise was furious. She cornered me in the kitchen that evening, her voice low and sharp. "Do you have any idea what you've done, Juno? People are calling me a terrible mother online. They're saying I don't care about you." I stared at her, my heart pounding. "Maybe they're saying that because it's true," I said quietly. Her eyes widened, and for a second I thought she might slap me. Instead, she turned and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. Sabrina was next. She came home from school the next day, her face red with anger. "You're such a little snitch, Juno," she spat, throwing her backpack onto the couch. "Everyone at school knows about the podcast. They're calling me a thief. My friends won't even talk to me anymore." I stood my ground, even though my hands were shaking. "You took my college fund, Sabrina. You knew what it meant to me, and you didn't care. Maybe now you'll understand how that feels." She glared at me, her eyes narrowing. "You're going to regret this," she hissed, then stomped off to her room, my old room. Ethan was different. He didn't say much, but I could tell he was affected too. At school, some of his friends had started teasing him, calling him the kid who breaks stuff. One day, I saw him sitting alone on the playground, his head down. I felt a pang of guilt. He was just a kid, caught up in all of this. But then I remembered the telescope, the bracelet, the way he'd laughed when I cried. I couldn't let myself feel too sorry for him. Dad was the hardest. He didn't talk to me for days after the podcast aired. He'd come home from work, eat dinner in silence, and disappear into his office. I could feel the tension in the house, like a storm waiting to break. Finally, one night, he called me into the living room. Elise was there too, sitting on the couch with her arms crossed. Dad looked at me, his face tired. "Juno, why didn't you tell me you were going to do that podcast?" he asked. I swallowed hard. "Because I didn't think you'd listen. You haven't listened to me in months." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "You've put us in a really difficult position, Juno. People are saying horrible things about us. Our neighbors won't even look at me anymore." I felt a flicker of anger. Maybe they wouldn't say those things if you hadn't given away my college fund. If you hadn't let Sabrina and Ethan treat me like I don't matter. Dad's eyes flashed with frustration. "You need to stop this, Juno. You're tearing this family apart." I stared at him, my voice trembling. "I didn't tear this family apart, Dad. You did." I turned and walked away, my heart pounding. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to stay silent anymore. The fallout didn't stop at home. Our neighborhood was small and word spread fast. I'd walk to the bus stop in the morning and see people whispering, pointing at our house. Mrs. Harper, the lady next door who used to give me cookies, stopped me one day. "Juno, I heard your podcast," she said, her voice soft. "I had no idea things were so bad for you." "I'm so sorry." I mumbled a thank you, my cheeks burning. It was nice to know someone cared, but it was also embarrassing. Everyone knew my story now. At school, Sabrina's reputation took a nosedive. Her cheerleading squad dropped her, saying she was too much drama. I heard one of her former friends, a girl named Chloe, talking in the hallway. She stole her sister's college fund. Can you believe that? I don't even want to be seen with her anymore. Sabrina tried to act like it didn't bother her, but I could tell it did. She stopped wearing her new clothes, stopped talking about Stanford. One day, I saw her eating lunch alone in the cafeteria, her head down. For a second, I almost felt bad for her. Almost. Finn's friends weren't much kinder. They'd tease him on the playground, saying things like, "Hey, Ethan, gonna break someone else's stuff today?" He started coming home quieter, not bouncing around the attic like he used to. One afternoon, I found him sitting on his mattress, staring at the floor. "Juno, do you hate me?" he asked, his voice small. I didn't know what to say. "I don't hate you, Ethan," I said finally. "But you hurt me." "A lot." He nodded, his eyes filling with tears. "I didn't mean to," he whispered. I didn't know if I believed him, but it was the first time he'd ever said anything like that. Dad started getting comments too. One day, I overheard Mr. Daniels, our neighbor across the street, talking to him in the driveway. "I can't believe you'd do that to your own daughter, Mark," he said, loud enough for me to hear. "That money was for Juno. What kind of father are you?" Dad didn't respond, just stared at the ground, his shoulders slumped. I'd never seen him look so small. Elise was struggling too. She worked at a local boutique, and some of her coworkers had heard the podcast. One of them posted about it on Instagram, calling her the worst stepmom ever. Elise came home that night, her eyes red from crying. She didn't say anything to me, but I could feel her resentment every time she looked at me. I didn't care. They'd made their choices, and now they were facing the consequences. Podcast kept spreading. Clips were everywhere, YouTube, TikTok, even local news outlets picked it up. People started a hashtag Justice for Juno, and it trended for days. I'd scroll through my phone at night, reading the comments, feeling a mix of pride and fear. I'd wanted to be heard, but I hadn't expected this. I'd started something bigger than myself, and there was no going back now. A few days after the podcast went viral, something unexpected happened. Sabrina came up to the attic, her hands in her pockets, her usual smirk gone. "Juno, can we talk?" she asked, her voice quieter than I'd ever heard it. I nodded, wary. She sat on the edge of Ethan's mattress, staring at the floor. "I didn't think it would get this bad," she said finally. I didn't think about how much I was hurting you." I stared at her, waiting for the catch. "You took my college funds, Sabrina. You broke my stuff. You made me feel like I didn't belong here. Did you really think that wouldn't hurt?" She looked up, her eyes glassy. "I was mad, okay? Mom and I had to move here, leave our old life behind. I hated it. I hated sharing Dad with you. I hated that you had this perfect little life with him before we came along." I laughed, a bitter sound. "Perfect? My mom died, Sabrina. I've been trying to hold on to the little I have left of her, and you took that away from me." She flinched, like my words had hit her harder than she expected. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice breaking. "I know I can't fix it, but I'm sorry." I didn't know what to say. I wanted to believe her, but I'd been hurt too many times. "Why should I trust you?" I asked. She shrugged, a small, sad smile on her face. "You don't have to, but I want to try to make things better. Starting with this." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small box. Inside was a new charm for my bracelet, a tiny silver star. "I know I can't replace what Ethan broke," she said, "but I thought this might help." I took the box, my throat tight. It wasn't enough, but it was a start. The next day, Sabrina helped me move some of my stuff out of the attic. She didn't say much, just carried boxes and set up a small desk in the corner of the attic for me to study. Ethan watched us, his eyes wide. "Are you guys friends now?" he asked. Sabrina shook her head. "Not yet, but we're trying." I didn't say anything, but I felt a small flicker of hope. Maybe things could change. Dad was slower to come around. He started spending more time at home, but he still didn't talk to me much. One night, I found him in the living room looking at an old photo album, the one with pictures of me and Mom. He didn't see me standing there, but I heard him whisper, "I'm sorry, Lena. I let you down." Lena was my mom's name. Hearing him say that made my chest ache. I wanted to go to him to tell him it wasn't too late, but I couldn't. Not yet. Over the next week, things started to shift. Sabrina kept her promise. She stopped Ethan from touching my stuff, even yelled at him when he tried to borrow my headphones without asking. "Leave Juno's things alone," she snapped, her voice firm. Ethan pouted but listened. It was the first time I'd felt like someone in this house was on my side. Sabrina also started helping me fix up the attic. We went to the store together and bought a rug, some string lights, and a small heater so I wouldn't freeze at night. "It's not much," she said as we hung the lights, "but I want you to have a space that feels like yours." Ethan started being more careful too. One day, he knocked on the attic door, actually knocked, and asked if he could borrow my pencil sharpener. "I'll give it back, I promise," he said, his eyes wide. I nodded, and when he returned it an hour later, he said, "I'm sorry for breaking your stuff, Juno. I didn't know it was so important." I could tell he meant it, and for the first time, I didn't feel angry at him. "Just don't do it again," I said. He nodded, a small smile on his face. Dad started trying too. One morning, he came up to the attic with a cup of hot chocolate, my favorite. "I thought you might want this," he said, his voice hesitant. I took the mug, the warmth spreading through my hands. "Thanks," I said quietly. He sat on the edge of my mattress, looking around at the attic. "I should have never made you move up here, Juno," he said. "I thought I was doing what was best for everyone, but I was wrong. I failed you." I didn't say anything, but I could feel the tears prickling my eyes. It was the first time he'd admitted he was wrong. That weekend, he took me stargazing again, just the two of us. We set up a blanket in the backyard, and he helped me fix the telescope lens using a repair kit he'd bought. As we looked at the stars, he said, "I've started a new fund for you, Juno. It's not much yet, but I'll make sure it's there when you need it." I looked at him, my heart swelling. "Thank you, Dad," I said, and for the first time in months, I felt like I had my dad back. Elise was the last to come around. One evening, she called me into the kitchen. "Juno, I owe you an apology," she said, her voice steady. "I should have been a better stepmom to you. I let Sabrina and Ethan treat you terribly, and I didn't stop them. I'm sorry." I nodded, not sure what to say. "I want to make things right," she continued. "Starting with giving you your room back." I stared at her, shocked. "Sabrina's okay with it," she added. "She knows she doesn't deserve it after everything." I didn't know if I was ready to forgive her, but I appreciated the gesture. A month after the podcast aired, I moved back into my room. Sabrina helped me paint the walls a soft blue, and we hung up my star-pattern curtains again. She even gave me back some of my books, the ones she'd tossed into a box when she moved in. "I'm sorry for taking this from you," she said, her voice quiet. I nodded, running my fingers over the shelves. Felt good to have my space back, to feel like I belonged again. The house wasn't perfect, but it was better. Dad started coming to my science fairs again, cheering louder than anyone else when I won second place for my project on black holes. He even raised my allowance to $50 a month, matching Ethan's, and lowered Sabrina's to $75. "It's only fair," he said, and Sabrina didn't argue. Ethan and I started getting along. He'd ask me to help him with his homework, and I'd let him use my telescope sometimes as long as he was careful. Sabrina and I weren't best friends, but we weren't enemies anymore. One day, she came to my room with a scrapbook she'd made. "I thought we could put some of your mom's photos in here," she said, opening it to show me the pages she'd decorated with stars and moons. We spent the afternoon gluing in pictures, and I told her stories about Mom, how she loved to dance in the kitchen, how she'd always dreamed of taking me to see the northern lights. Sabrina listened, her eyes soft. "She sounds amazing," she said. "I wish I could have met her." Podcast had changed me too. School, people stopped whispering and started talking to me. A girl named Mia invited me to join the astronomy club, and I started playing basketball again, something I hadn't done since Mom died. I wasn't just the girl from the podcast anymore. I was Juno, and I was finding my place again. One night, I got an email from Clara, the podcast host. "Juno, your episode has inspired so many people," she wrote. "We've had listeners reach out saying your story helped them speak up about their own struggles. Thank you for being so brave." I smiled, feeling a warmth in my chest. I'd wanted to be heard, and now I was helping others be heard too. The house still had its rough moments. We'd argue sometimes, and there were days when I still felt the ache of Mom's absence. But now I had a family that saw me, that listened to me. Dad, Sabrina, Ethan, even Elise, they weren't perfect, but they were trying. And that was enough. So now I have to ask, what would you have done in my place? Would you have stayed quiet, or would you have spoken out? How do you know when enough is enough in a family? I really want to hear your thoughts. Tell me in the comments. I'm listening.